Let's talk about the need to start trying to protect our elders in this country.
Yeah, it's interesting because there was a time when we thought from a standpoint that the very young and the very old were the people that we had an obligation to protect. My grandmother used to say, once a man, twice a child. Because as people get older, they have disadvantages of mobility, sometimes mental acuity, things of that nature, and so whether it's just normal aging and memory loss, or it's Alzheimer's or forms of dementia, things of that nature, we always used to look at the fact that we are supposed to protect the very young and the very old. But it seems like society has changed, and as you said, even criminals used to have a certain amount of respect, whether they weren't knocking over elderly people because they knew they only had so much money. It wasn't even going to be worth the criminal action, or it was just respect for not doing that to an older person because you have a mother or a grandmother, etc. It just wasn't done as widely as it's become, and as violently as it's become. There's a difference between snatching a purse and then snatching and beating up somebody. But my concern is with the widespread problem in society of this scamming situation, whether it's over the phone or deed theft or all of these things that have been going on, specifically targeting the elderly who don't have the ability to manipulate. I mean, younger people wind up being scammed, but elderly people are more susceptible to that type of behavior. And in this world of technology, it's frightening that we are not moving with the changes in technology to do the necessary protection for the people who need it. Specifically, if you remember when there was the do not call list, there was you just plugged in your number and people were not supposed to call you for any reason, unless it was political campaign thing or something of that nature. But you weren't supposed to be disturbed while you're having dinner, by a telemarketing, things of that nature. That stopped because eventually the do not call list didn't matter. People were calling you whether they're on it or not. And I remember you supposed to be able to report it to the Attorney General's office if someone called you 3 or more times or something like that, and then they were supposed to get in trouble. But that just went to the wayside. As disturbing as it is of being annoying, what's even more disturbing now is the fact that scammers have taken advantage of this lackluster interest in protecting people from these types of situations. We have scammers now that are calling our elderly. They're calling, you can't block their number because they'll scramble their number. They're calling constantly, calling back, and taking advantage of elderly people who don't have the ability to determine that this is someone that they should just be hanging up on. My problem is if we're not doing anything similar to when they first said, oh, let's make the do not call list, if we're not addressing the fact that technology is moving fast and being used in the negative as opposed to in the positive, then I think we have a problem as society of not protecting our elders. And until we do something about it, we should all have a problem, whether you have an elder in your life or whether or not you're hearing stories on the news about these situations that are happening to people about losing their homes or things of that nature. And the fact that I know some of these companies are overseas, and so they can't be traced. There are some who are local. I remember there was a story maybe 6 months ago about some guy in Florida who was supposed to be known as the king of robocalls, because he was actually going through this whole thing, had several companies that were doing this, and he was violating some rule, and so they were taking him to court. But that should be happening on a regular basis. They need to start task forces, or the Attorney General's office needs to start pursuing these cases more often. They need to do it specifically because of our elders.
Well, you know what? I'm sorry to interrupt you. What I'm going to say, Lorie, what the part of the problem is that a lot of older people want to be independent. They want to be able to take care of themselves. And there's a shame factor that's also involved in the lack of information being put out there to report this information, because they don't even want to tell their own families. Mm-hmm. But, AARP did an excellent piece on this, and AARP talked about on average, there's a loss of $34,000 a year based off of these type of exploits for elderly Americans. And when it breaks down dealing with age, when it break down per age, it said the people that lose the most amount of money are between ages 70 to 79. They had an average loss. And this is people reporting this stuff to the government and stuff, to the I forgot the consumer of, I forgot the name of the organization or whatever, but I just want to give a little bit of the numbers. So on average, people between 70 to 79 again was $45,000. People 80 or over suffer the second highest losses of about $39,000. 60 to 69 was like $22,000, and 50 to 59 is like $13,000. And in this case, most of the strangers were identified but not prosecuted. A lot of the people, they were able to find out who was perpetrating some of these frauds, but nothing ever happened to these individuals, and that's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Because if people get a slap on the wrist or have no repercussions for their actions, why wouldn't they try it again? I remember when I was there's one of those sites that you post stuff. It wasn't eBay, but it was like one of those you post it on the site and then you can sell stuff and people can come and pick it up or stuff like that. Well, I remember I was posting stuff after my aunt passed away, stuff like a wheelchair and things that I thought other people could use, put at some ridiculously low price just because I didn't want it to go to waste, a hospital bed, things of that nature. And I remember posting, and people started immediately responding via text, and they were saying stuff like, oh, well, I know you're only charging $50, but I'll give you $150 if you just hold it. Give me your address and I'll send you a check, and then we'll make arrangements for me to come pick it up. And I immediately, with my, New York cynical mentality, said, that just doesn't even, that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Who is going to see something posted for $50 and say, I'll give you 3 times as much? Now, obviously, these were scammers that were looking to send you a check, you cash it, they have your bank account, and now they can start trying to filter money out of your account. But at my age, and with my cynical New York mentality, the mere fact that I could do that worries me even more, because I know that elderly people probably wouldn't think about that.
Right.
They probably would think, oh, wow, I'm going to get twice as much, or whatever the case is, and they would fall for a scam like that. Or they could even put themselves in danger by dealing with a scammer who now is going to physically come to them to pick up whatever the item is, because that's the nature of the site. And now they've endangered their physical safety. These things really annoy me.
Lorie, have you ever heard of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau?
Mm-hmm.
You've heard of it. But I wonder how many elderly people know about it, where they can actually submit a complaint and let them know about it. We're going to post the information out there so they know there is a Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, so that their family members and people that love them, or, neighbors or friends or whatever, who know that their family members or their loved ones have been abused and taken advantage of by anybody, either over the internet or in person, that they need to contact this agency and to report these people. And they need to report them not only to the federal government, but to state and local government also.